Please allow me to start with a quote from His Excellency President Abdullah Gül, which he made actually yesterday. I quote, "We have not hesitated in siding with those fighting for their rights and dignity. Indeed, in countries like Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, and Yemen, which are now attempting to institutionalize change, Turkey is their most active partner, sharing our own experience and providing tangible assistance in the form of economic cooperation and political capacity building," end of quote. I'm going to use the Yemeni case today, and I actually have one point to make in a very preliminary fashion. And the point is that although the Arab Spring created a rainbow of empowerment in the region and new political expression in the region, it did also provide a greater operational freedom of action for non-state armed actors. And I'm using the term armed actors to differentiate them from the traditional non-state actors, NGOs, INGOs, transnational corporations, etc. So this is what I'm attempting now to present, to highlight what happened to the non-state armed actors in countries affected by the Arab Spring, with my attention on Yemen. I would like to start by highlighting how the Arab Spring, before I do this, I would like to assure you that the main objective of this presentation is not to give you answers, but actually to generate questions. So we would love to hear questions from the sitting there. This is why we're here today. In Yemen, the Arab Spring met a fractured political entity that has been experiencing one of the worst political realities, which is neither falling nor stabilizing. It's a country that has been not falling, but not stabilizing. There were lots of talks during the last years about the so-called Afghanization of Yemen, Somalization of Yemen, Balkanization of Yemen, and it has been like this for decades, neither falling nor stabilizing. Locked for decades in a poverty conflict trap and beset by severe institutional weakness and very limited capacity to establish security and authority, the Yemeni state could neither create minimal enabling conditions for poverty reduction nor prevent armed non-state actors from challenging stability. Yemen's non-state armed groups include the following: militant jihadists, separatists, insurgents, tribal militia, and violent sectarian groups. These actors differ in their goals, membership, level of organization, and willingness to engage in violence and dialogue. I will be focusing on the violent sectarian non-state actors in Yemen. Before I do this, let me just give you a brief background about Yemen. I know Yemen is known in Turkey, by the way. I always hear lamenting songs in the Turkish folklore about the time of the Ottomans in Yemen. So I'm sure the word Yemen has somehow a meaning in the collective psyche and consciousness of the Turkish nation. But I would like just to mention that Yemen is a unique specimen in Middle East political aquarium. It's a very poor, not only poor, it's one of the least developed countries in the world. And you can imagine where is it located. The least developed country in the region is located in the wealthiest neighborhood of oil monarchies and sheikhodoms. So it's a very unique specimen in the region. It's very tribal, and it is the weakest Arab state. And weakest here, I mean its capacity to penetrate society. The Yemeni state is so weak to the extent of not being able to penetrate its own society. Okay, a few years prior to the Arab Spring, Yemen entered more frequently than usual into the regional and international media as a result of the re-eruption of a radical Shiite insurgency along the Yemeni-Saudi borders. Something very interesting about Yemen, that Yemen is seldom in the media unless its instability and violence poses regional or international threat, then Yemen comes somehow on the media. The catalyst for the international media coverage of the Shiite insurgency, however, was the assumption that Yemen is turning into an arena for a proxy war between the Sunni Muslim world led by Saudi Arabia and the Shiite Muslim world led by the anti-Washington mullahs of Iran. Now, at the time of the massive uprising in January 2011, these uprisings in Yemen reignited tribal, sectarian, ideological conflicts that had been sedimented during the 3 decades of Saleh regime. One of the reignited conflicts with dangerous regional repercussions is the conflict between 2 offshoots of Islam's 2 major denominations of Sunnism and Shiism. The first offshoot is the Salafi strand of Sunni Islam. This hyper-orthodox strand, with its strict constructionist discourse, is new to Yemen. It emerged during the 1980s and found wide appeal among the thousands of Yemeni jihadists who fought against the Soviet Union in Afghanistan, and among retaining Yemeni migrant workers from Saudi Arabia who brought the ideology of Salafism to their respective Yemeni towns and villages. Geographically, there is no single power base of Salafism in Yemen. The strand is organized around widely dispersed teaching centers, charity organizations, mosques, and it's a loose, non-hierarchical coalition of political, commercial, tribal, and religious networks. The second offshoot involved in the current politicized post-Arab Spring sectarianism is the so-called Zaydism, which is an offshoot of Shiism. Zaydism was brought to Yemen in the 9th century, and the first Zayd